1 month. Can you believe this guy? How often does he upload videos? Wait a minute, I'm that guy. Yeah, I should make a new one. My apologies for taking so long to produce videos, but well, that's just the way things are. What you see behind me is an entirely new setup. It's not the 1 GHz Pentium 3 motherboard that I was working on last time. That one is still being looked at. This is a 46 motherboard that I was able to pick up for $10 during one of my recent thrift store visits. It was a pretty good deal. It came with a CPU, RAM, and even some of the cache already pre-installed. And it didn't run straight out of the box, so it took me about 2 weeks to do research and to perform initial repairs on it. And then for the next 2 weeks I was assembling enough components to build a complete system, because it's entirely ISA based, and I didn't have enough cards and controllers to get a full computer running. Well, and here's the beast. Let me walk you through the process and explain what I have in mind for it. This is what it looks like without expansion cards. The model is M601 version 1.3a. Manufacturer is unknown, but that is not important. The chipset is manufactured by SARC. I'm not familiar with that one. We have 6 expansion slots, which are ISA, and 3 of them support VISA local bus. For the CPU we have Intel 46DX2 running at 66 MHz. For memory we have 32 megabytes of RAM currently installed. The motherboard supports up to 64, which is quite nice. Not many motherboards from those years went as far as 64 megs. For cache, it came with 128 kilobytes pre-installed, and I expanded it to 256, which is maximum allowable amount. There is one chip in here that's missing, but it's not missing actually. The last one in here is called TOG memory, and it is a subsection of cache that stores memory addresses, and it's supposed to be proportional to the amount of RAM, I believe, that is installed. So the more RAM you have, the bigger this cache has to be. And when it comes to this pile of garbage, well, I'm not exaggerating, it is actually garbage. I deliberately bought this broken Denon CD changer because I want to make a computer enclosure out of it. And I looked for one strategically that had specific features. This is a working CD-ROM drive, and I wanted something that had proper dimensions of this little window. If you line up the CD-ROM drive to this LCD display, you'll see that it lines up almost perfectly, and my goal is to cut it out and make it a CD-ROM drive. For the disk changer component, I was thinking of either putting a floppy drive, a standard floppy drive, or a better option might be a Gotek drive of matching color. So I'm thinking of cutting a hole in here and making it a floppy drive. Also, when it comes to hard drive storage, I'm not going to be using an actual hard drive. I will be using a StarTek, what are those things called? Compact flash to ID adapters. And I'm opening it up for the first time, so I haven't looked inside yet. You're witnessing this with me. The front is partially busted. I assume that somebody might have pressed it like this and it pushed some of the buttons out. It might have even been dropped onto its front. There's some scratches on it, but that is not important. The box is what we're interested in. Alright, let's remove the screws and see how far we can get without breaking anything. Looks very clean. I'm not anticipating too much difficulty. The front switch, unfortunately, is located at the very back. I do not like this design. That means that I may have to install my own mechanical switch instead of this one and replace the button. But everything else is quite clean. Motherboard will be resting in the same location as the main circuit board, and I do not see too many obstructions. It will be lined up with the back to allow installation of the expansion cards. The front panel, I think I will remove the circuit board and just leave the buttons. I may glue them to the front and make them non-functional. I have no use for them regardless. I will be removing this mechanism completely, and my goal is to make enough room for the power supply. And already I'm noticing some elevated metal in here that I may have to hammer down to make the bottom section flat. Otherwise there may not be enough room for the AC power supply. Just looking at the boards, I don't think there's anything worth salvaging, aside from maybe these two capacitors, but nah. I think I'm just gonna recycle these two. Alright. And the plan is to have a motherboard on the far right, which is my right. Like this. I will have to drill my own stand-up posts. Yeah. The motherboard, the 46 motherboard originally had these plastic standoffs, and I will be replacing them with something more solid and more permanent. For now, it's good. Yeah, so I think I can just put the cards like this, 1, 2, 3. This is a nice clean area because I'll have to cut out my own holes. As you can see, the cards are a little bit taller than the back panel, and my goal is to remove these back plates and just leave the sockets and cut holes in this with a Dremel probably to make cards directly connect to the back plane. If I'm to try and cover it like this, if I line up the back panel with the corners, then the power supply also lines up, even though it's elevated. Oh, this is neat. This will be even better. Haha. Additionally, I decided to remove the volume control, potentiometer, and the headphone support because these two holes, they're just perfect for the turbo button and the LED indicator dedicated to it. There's also some space on this side which I can use to install one extra button for the reset function, but on the 486 it's not that essential because the power button can control the same function. By the way, here's a trick question for you. I got this power supply and I have to make 4 holes to mount it to the back panel. But the back panel is non-transparent. And the holes, as you can see, they would line up like this. So, how do I mark the holes? How do I find out where they're supposed to be on the other side? How do I pre-drill them before cutting a rectangle in the middle? Well, there are 3 options as far as I know. One of them is to do measurements. That's the longest method. You can figure out all the dimensions of the power supply, figure out where every hole is, measure it horizontally, vertically, then sketch it on the metal and drill. A much easier option involves using Q-tips, like these ones. And you just cut them off near the end, kind of like this. So you end up with 4 Q-tip heads. What you do is you stick them into the holes where the screws are supposed to be. like this. And what you do next is you cover them with color. It can be anything. It can be nail polish, acrylic, or whatever. I'm using a dry erase marker to mark dots like this. And, oh, actually I'm upside down right now. All I'm doing is pressing the power supply against the back panel. When we move it, you'll be left with visible dots indicating the drill marks. And for the last method, all you need is a piece of paper and a pencil. All you do is cover up the power supply like this, and you hold it in place with one hand and just stencil with the other. Check this out. X-ray vision. Please remember, this is critical. It has to be done with a blue colored pencil. No other color will do. I'm just kidding. Obviously, any color is fine.
They develop technologies beyond our understanding. Now they seek to destroy us before they move on to other worlds.
They have become dependent upon their machines. They encase what remains of their bodies in armor.
And there's a quick view of the front panel. Top left switch controls main power. The switch below it sets the front side bus frequency of the motherboard, either to 33 or 40 megahertz. Next we have the DVD-ROM drive and the Gotek USB floppy emulator. All of these buttons are glued in place. They do not do anything currently, but it is possible to add function to them later on by positioning buttons behind them. And I replaced headphones socket and the volume control knob with a turbo button and the hard drive LED indicator. Here's the finalized look of the back side. I extended this hole to expose the keyboard controller. I added joystick port onto this side. Installed it close to the sound card output, which are these three holes. This hole, I didn't have use for it. I covered that temporarily. Possibly I will add more serial ports or other expansion ports to this area later. This would be the VGA output from the graphics card, the parallel port, and the serial port for the mouse. For the power supply, I had to extend the hole because this full-size ATX one had a slightly different layout. The power connector was in a different spot and had this power switch, so I had to extend this hole to make sure that it accommodated those additional features. Here's one last look at the internals before I put the cover on. I'm really glad with how everything turned out. There was just enough space for all the pieces and enough gaps to allow proper airflow past the motherboard and into the power supply. The system is not too loud. Most noise is actually being generated by the CPU fan. This little guy is quite loud, but he is connected through an extension that I can disconnect. I'll see how much the CPU heats up. Maybe I can even run it without the fan. And for the software on this machine, for now I put DOS 6.22 and I'm running few FMV games just to make sure that the graphics card and the sound are running properly. Later on I will do additional testing and benchmarking, but for now I'm just glad to have this project wrapped and ready to move on to other things. And I can't believe how tired I am. I just want to put this entire thing together and leave it for another day. Soldering and software installation is definitely not for today. I'm completely exhausted. Next time we talk, we'll be dealing with I can't even speak anymore, so tired. So I'm just going to assemble everything and leave software installation and wiring for another day. Yeah.